Hi friends, you're on the Staley channel, and today we have a special episode that will definitely give you goosebumps. We've rounded up the craziest and most surprising cheating stories people have shared on Reddit. Get ready for shocking confessions, incredible twists and moments that will definitely stay in your memory for a long time. Don't switch, because what you hear next will make you think about a lot of things. Let's go! I never thought I'd be posting here, but I need to get this off my chest. It's been eating away at me for months, and I feel like I'm going insane. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. I'm a 34-year-old guy, married for 8 years to Sarah, 32F. We met in college and had what I thought was a perfect relationship. No kids yet, but we were planning to start trying soon. I work in marketing for a large tech company, and Sarah was a high school English teacher. Everything seemed great until about 6 months ago when I got a new boss, Jack, 41M. He came in with a reputation for being a hard ass, but he took a shine to me right away. He started inviting me to important meetings, praising my work to upper management, and even bringing me along to client dinners. I was thrilled. It felt like my career was finally taking off. One night, after a particularly successful presentation, Jack invited me out for drinks. We ended up at this upscale bar, and after a few whiskeys, he started opening up about his personal life. He told me he was divorced, no kids, and how lonely it could be at the top. I felt for the guy and, wanting to cheer him up, invited him over for dinner that weekend. Sarah was an amazing cook, and I thought it would be nice to show Jack some hospitality. That dinner was the beginning of the end. Though I didn't know it at the time, Sarah and Jack hit it off immediately. They started talking about books, Sarah's passion, and I was happy to see my wife and my boss getting along so well. As the night went on, I noticed Sarah laughing more than usual, touching her hair, leaning in when Jack spoke. At the time, I brushed it off as her being friendly, maybe a little starstruck by Jack's success and charisma. After that night, Jack started coming over more often, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to hang out. He'd bring expensive bottles of wine, books he thought Sarah would like. I was so focused on impressing him and advancing my career that I didn't see what was happening right under my nose. About 2 months after that first dinner, I had to go on a business trip for a week. When I got back, something felt off. Sarah seemed distant, distracted. She said she was just stressed about work, and I believed her. I wanted to believe her. A few weeks later, I was working late at the office. Jack had already left for the day, which was unusual. He was always the last one out. I realized I'd left some important files on his desk earlier, so I went to his office to retrieve them. As I was searching for the files, I accidentally knocked over a stack of papers. As I was picking them up, a photo fell out. My heart stopped. It was a picture of Sarah, my Sarah, in lingerie I'd never seen before, posed provocatively on what looked like a hotel bed. My hands were shaking as I turned the photo over. On the back, in Sarah's handwriting, "Missing you already. Can't wait for next time. Love, S." I felt like I was going to be sick. I don't know how long I sat there on Jack's office floor, staring at that photo, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? Was it just physical, or was there more? How could Sarah do this to me? How could Jack? I must have been in shock because I don't remember driving home. I just found myself standing in our living room, Sarah looking up from her book with a smile that quickly faded when she saw my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, and I just laughed. A hollow, broken sound that I didn't recognize as my own voice. I held up the photo. "Want to explain this?" The color drained from her face. She started stammering, trying to come up with excuses, but I cut her off. I didn't want to hear it. I just turned and walked out, ignoring her calls and pleas. I spent that night in a cheap motel, drinking myself into oblivion. The next morning, hungover and heartbroken, I called in sick to work. I couldn't face Jack, couldn't pretend everything was normal. Sarah blew up my phone with calls and texts. I ignored them all. After a few days, I finally agreed to meet her at a coffee shop to talk. I thought I deserved answers at least. She cried, of course, told me it had only been going on for a month, that it didn't mean anything, that she loved me, all the cliches you'd expect. When I asked her why, she said she felt neglected, that I'd been so focused on work lately, on impressing Jack, that she felt invisible. The irony was like a knife to the gut. I asked her if she wanted to try to save our marriage. She said yes, swore she'd do anything. I told her she had to quit her job immediately. I couldn't bear the thought of her being around those kids, setting that example. She agreed without hesitation. As for Jack, I couldn't quit, not right away. We needed the money, especially with Sarah unemployed. So I had to go back to work, had to face him every day, knowing what he'd done. The first time I saw him after finding out, it took every ounce of self-control not to punch him in the face. He acted like nothing had happened, all smiles and, "How was your time off?" I wanted to scream, to expose him in front of the whole office, but I kept it together somehow. I started looking for a new job immediately, of course, but in this economy, with my industry being so specialized, it wasn't easy. Months went by and every day was torture. Watching Jack in meetings, hearing him praise my work, knowing he'd betrayed me in the worst way possible, it was eating me alive. Sarah and I started couples therapy. She seemed genuinely remorseful, doing everything she could to rebuild my trust. But every time she touched me, all I could think about was her with Jack. Every time she said, "I love you," I heard her voice saying those words to him. I tried to forgive her, I really did, but the anger, the hurt, the betrayal, it was like a poison in my veins. I started drinking more, staying out late just to avoid going home. Our therapist said it was normal, that healing takes time. But how much time? How long before I could look at my wife without seeing a stranger? Then, about 2 months ago, everything changed again. I was at work in the middle of a presentation when my phone started blowing up with notifications. Confused, I checked it during a break and saw dozens of messages from friends and family. "Are you okay?" "I'm so sorry, man. I can't believe she would do this." Bewildered, I opened social media and my heart dropped. Sarah had posted a long, detailed confession about her affair with Jack. She named him explicitly, gave dates, locations, everything. She said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore, that she wanted everyone to know what a horrible person she was. The office exploded into chaos. HR was called in. Jack was escorted out, looking shell-shocked. I just stood there numb as my colleagues whispered and stared. I rushed home to find Sarah gone. All her things were still there, but she'd left a note. She said she couldn't face me anymore, that she was going to stay with her sister for a while. She ended it by saying she hoped that by confessing publicly, she could give me the closure I deserved. The fallout was nuclear. Jack was fired, his reputation in tatters. Sarah was vilified online, her career in education effectively over. And me? I was caught in the middle of it all, trying to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. It's been 2 months since then. I'm still at the company, but with a new boss and a promotion. A consolation prize for all I've been through, I guess. Sarah's still at her sister's. We talk occasionally, but I don't know if we'll ever be able to move past this. I'm in therapy now, trying to work through my anger and trust issues. Some days are better than others. Sometimes I think about trying to reconcile with Sarah. Other times I want to file for divorce and never see her again. I don't know what the future holds. All I know is that nothing will ever be the same. My marriage, my career, my sense of self, all destroyed by lies and betrayal. If you've made it this far, thanks for reading. I guess I'm not really looking for advice, just needed to get this off my chest. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that you never really know someone, not completely, and that trust, once broken, may never fully heal. The weeks following Sarah's public confession were a blur of chaos and emotional turmoil. I was bombarded with calls and messages from friends, family, and even distant acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to know if I was okay, if the rumors were true, if there was anything they could do to help. Their concern was touching but also overwhelming. I found myself retreating from social media and avoiding most interactions. Work became a strange mixture of sympathy and awkwardness. My colleagues clearly didn't know how to act around me. Some were overly nice, treating me like I was made of glass. Others avoided me entirely, as if my misfortune was contagious. HR called me in for a series of meetings, assuring me that the company was taking the situation seriously and offering counseling services. I accepted, more out of a desire to appear cooperative than any belief that it would actually help. The promotion I received felt hollow. Yes, the pay increase was substantial, and under normal circumstances I would have been thrilled. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was born out of pity rather than merit. Every time I sat in Jack's old office, my new office, I was haunted by memories of finding that damning photograph. I considered turning down the promotion, but practicality won out. With Sarah unemployed and our future uncertain, we needed the money. Speaking of Sarah, her impulsive confession had effectively nuked her career prospects. No school would touch her now, not with her affair with a married man plastered all over the internet. She tried to apply for jobs in other fields, but her viral infamy followed her everywhere. Eventually, she stopped trying and sank into a deep depression. I was torn between anger at her actions and concern for her well-being. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to be the supportive husband I'd always prided myself on being. But another part, a darker part that I wasn't entirely comfortable acknowledging, felt a twisted sense of satisfaction at her suffering. Hadn't she brought this on herself? Our communication during this time was sporadic and strained. We'd exchanged terse text messages about practical matters, bills that needed paying, mail that needed forwarding. But anything deeper felt impossible. How do you even begin to have a real conversation when there's so much pain and betrayal between you? About a month after the confession, Sarah asked if we could meet in person. I agreed, more out of morbid curiosity than any desire for reconciliation. We met at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town, away from prying eyes and wagging tongues. Sarah looked different, smaller somehow, deflated. The confident, vivacious woman had fallen in love with seemed to have disappeared, replaced by this hollow-eyed stranger. She'd lost weight, her clothes hanging loosely on her frame, and there were dark circles under her eyes that even makeup couldn't fully conceal. "Thank you for coming," she said softly as I sat down across from her. I wasn't sure you would. I shrugged, not trusting myself to speak just yet. A waitress came over and we both ordered coffee, more for something to do with our hands than out of any real desire for caffeine. "I know I have no right to ask this," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly, "but I need to know. Is there any chance for us? Any at all?" I took a deep breath, trying to sort through the tumult of emotions her question stirred up. "I don't know," I said finally. "I honestly don't know, Sarah. You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on me with my boss. You lied to my face for months, and then you decided to air all our dirty laundry in public without even warning me. How am I supposed to come back from that?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I forced myself to continue. "Do you have any idea what it's been like for me, having to go to work every day, facing all those pitying looks, knowing that everyone is whispering about me behind my back? Christ, Sarah. My own parents called to ask if the internet rumors were true. Do you know how humiliating that was?" "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words seeming to catch in her throat. "I know it's not enough, but I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you like this." I laughed bitterly. "But you did mean to hurt me, didn't you? Maybe not this badly, but you knew what you were doing when you started sleeping with Jack. You knew it would destroy me if I ever found out." She flinched at my words, but didn't deny them. I don't know what I was thinking. I felt so lonely, so invisible. Jack made me feel seen, desired. But it was all a lie, a fantasy. He never cared about me, not really. As soon as the affair became public, he cut all contact, wouldn't even respond to my apology. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy for her, but I squashed that impulse ruthlessly. And what did you expect? That he'd leave his wife for you? That you'd ride off into the sunset together? Sarah shook her head miserably. "No, I don't know. It all seems so stupid now, so childish. I threw away everything we had, everything we'd built together for. For what? A few moments of excitement? The illusion of being wanted?" We sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of her words hanging heavy between us. Finally, I spoke again, my voice low and controlled. "I need you to understand something, Sarah. Even if I could forgive the affair, and I'm not saying I can, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You didn't just betray me once. You made the choice to betray me over and over again. Every time you met up with Jack, every time you lied to my face, and then you betrayed me again with that public confession. How can I ever believe anything you say?" She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of touching mine. "I know I've broken your trust. I know I've hurt you in ways I can never fully make right. But please, if there's any part of you that still loves me, any part that remembers the good times we had, can we at least try? I'll do anything. Go to therapy, give you full access to my phone and email, whatever it takes. I can't lose you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too blind to see it until it was too late." I pulled my hand back, unable to bear even the possibility of her touch. "I need time, Sarah. I can't make any decisions right now. Everything is still too raw, too painful. I need to figure out what I want, what I need without you influencing me." She nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes. Just please don't give up on us entirely. Not yet." As I left the cafe, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to run back, to take Sarah in my arms and tell her everything would be okay. But a larger part, the part that remembered the pain and humiliation of her betrayal, held me back. I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive her, but I also wasn't sure I was ready to let go completely. The next few weeks were a time of deep introspection. I threw myself into therapy, finally opening up about all the anger and hurt I'd been bottling up. My therapist suggested I try journaling as a way to process my emotions, and to my surprise, I found it incredibly helpful. Putting my thoughts down on paper helped me see patterns in my thinking, helped me understand my own reactions better. I also started reconnecting with old friends, people I'd neglected during my marriage, and my single-minded focus on my career. It was refreshing to spend time with people who knew me before I was the guy whose wife cheated on him with his boss. They helped remind me of who I used to be, of the person I could be again. As the weeks turned into months, I slowly began to feel more like myself. The pain didn't disappear. I doubted it ever would completely, but it became more manageable. I could go whole days without thinking about Sarah or Jack, without reliving the moment I found that photograph. Sarah and I continued to communicate sporadically. She respected my need for space, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. She told me she'd started therapy too, that she was working on understanding why she'd made the choices she had. Part of me was glad she was getting help, while another part wondered if it was too little, too late. About 6 months after Sarah's confession, I finally felt ready to make a decision about our future. I asked her to meet me at our old favorite park, the place where I'd proposed to her all those years ago. It felt fitting somehow to end things where they'd begun. As we walked along the familiar paths, leaves crunching underfoot, I finally spoke the words I'd been turning over in my mind for months. "Sarah, I've done a lot of thinking, a lot of soul-searching, and I've realized something important. I don't hate you. I thought I did for a while, but I don't. What I feel is sadness. Sadness for what we've lost, for the future we'll never have." She looked at me, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "What are you saying?" I took a deep breath. "I'm saying that I forgive you, not because you deserve it necessarily, but because I need to forgive you for my own peace of mind. Holding on to this anger and resentment, it was poisoning me from the inside out." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how much that means to me." "But," I continued, my voice gentle but firm, "forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I've realized that while I may always love the person you were, the person I thought you were, I can't be with the person you are now. The trust between us is broken beyond repair. I'll always care about you, Sarah, but I can't be your husband anymore." She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't like it, but I understand. You deserve to be happy, to be with someone you can trust completely." We sat on a bench watching the sun set over the park where we'd shared so many happy memories. It was a bittersweet moment, an ending, but also a new beginning. "What will you do now?" I asked her. She wiped her eyes, straightening her shoulders. "I'm thinking of going back to school, maybe getting a degree in counseling. I want to help people who've been through what we've been through. Maybe some good can come out of all this pain." I nodded, feeling a small spark of pride for her resilience. "I think that's a great idea. You always were good at helping people." We sat in companionable silence for a while longer, both lost in our own thoughts. Finally, as the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the horizon, we stood up. "Goodbye, Sarah," I said, pulling her into a gentle hug. "I hope you find happiness." She hugged me back, her body shaking slightly with suppressed sobs. "Goodbye, your name. Thank you for everything. I am so sorry for hurting you. And I hope someday you can find it in your heart to remember the good times we had." As I watched her walk away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt hopeful about the future. I had survived the worst betrayal imaginable, and I had come out stronger on the other side. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll find love again someday, or maybe I'll discover that I'm happier on my own. But I do know this: I am more than what was done to me. I am more than a victim of infidelity. I am a survivor, and my story is far from over. As I walked back to my car, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The chapter of my life with Sarah was closing, but a new one was just beginning. And this time, I would be the author of my own story. A really touching story. Let's move on to another. I never thought I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am. I need to get this off my chest, and maybe writing it all down will help me make sense of the mess my life has become. This is going to be a long one, so grab a drink and settle in. I'm Jake, 35 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all. A beautiful wife, Sarah, 33, a successful career as a software engineer, and a best friend, Mike, 36, who I'd known since we were kids. Sarah and I had been married for 7 years, and while we had our ups and downs like any couple, I thought we were happy. Mike had been my rock through everything. He was the best man at our wedding, the godfather to our dog, we didn't have kids yet, and the person I turned to for advice on everything from work stress to picking out Sarah's birthday presents. It all started to unravel on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. I had just landed a huge promotion at work, one that I'd been gunning for months. I was over the moon and couldn't wait to share the news with Sarah and Mike. I decided to surprise them both by inviting Mike over for dinner to celebrate. I left work early, picked up a bottle of Sarah's favorite wine, and headed home. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Mike's car parked on the street. I thought nothing of it at first. Mike often stopped by when I wasn't home to help Sarah with odd jobs around the house or just to hang out. I was actually excited that he was already there so we could start the celebration right away. I entered the house quietly, planning to surprise them. As I walked towards the living room, I heard muffled sounds coming from upstairs. My heart started racing, but I told myself I was being paranoid. There had to be a reasonable explanation, right? I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling like it weighed a ton. The sounds grew louder as I approached our bedroom. I recognized Sarah's voice, breathy and passionate in a way I hadn't heard in months. Then I heard Mike's low groan, and my world shattered. I stood outside that door for what felt like an eternity, my hand frozen on the doorknob. Part of me wanted to burst in, to confront them, to scream and rage. But another part, the part that was already trying to protect what was left of my heart, told me to wait, to be sure, to gather evidence so they couldn't deny it later. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I walked away. I went back downstairs, grabbed my phone from my bag, and started recording. Then I went back up and pushed open the bedroom door. The scene that greeted me will be forever burned into my memory. Sarah and Mike, tangled together on our bed. The bed we'd bought together when we first got married. They didn't even notice me at first, too lost in each other. It was Sarah who saw me first. Her eyes widened in shock and horror. "Jake!" she gasped, scrambling to cover herself. Mike jumped off the bed, fumbling for his clothes. I just stood there, phone in hand, recording their panicked scrambling. I felt oddly calm, like I was watching a movie of someone else's life imploding. "How long?" I asked, my voice sounding strange and distant to my own ears. They both started talking at once, a jumble of apologies and excuses. I held up my hand, silencing them. "How long?" I repeated, enunciating each word clearly. Sarah broke first. 6 months, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. 6 months, half a year of lies, half a year of betrayal. I did the math in my head. It must have started around the time of our last anniversary. The anniversary where Sarah had seemed so passionate, so in love. The irony made me want to laugh and vomit at the same time. I turned to Mike, my best friend since childhood, the guy who'd been by my side through everything. "Why?" I asked, hating how broken my voice sounded. Mike couldn't even look me in the eye. "I'm sorry, Jake, it just happened. We never meant to hurt you." I laughed then, a harsh, bitter sound that made them both flinch. "Never meant to hurt me? You've been fucking my wife for 6 months in my own house and you never meant to hurt me? That's rich, Mike. Really fucking rich." I turned back to Sarah, who was now fully dressed and crying silently. "I want you out of this house. Tonight. Go stay with your sister or a hotel, I don't care. Just get out." "Jake, please," she begged. "Can't we talk about this? I love you, it was a mistake." "A mistake?" I interrupted. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk or oversleeping your alarm. Fucking my best friend for 6 months isn't a mistake, Sarah. It's a choice. A choice you made every single time." I looked at Mike again. "And you're dead to me. 15 years of friendship, gone. I never want to see your face again." Mike started to say something, but I cut him off. "Get out, both of you, now." They left, Sarah still crying and Mike looking like he wanted to say more, but thinking better of it. As soon as the front door closed behind them, I sank to the floor, my back against the bedroom wall, and finally let the tears come. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I picked myself up and went downstairs. The bottle of wine I had bought to celebrate my promotion was still sitting on the kitchen counter. In a fit of rage, I grabbed it and hurled it against the wall, watching with grim satisfaction as it shattered, red wine staining the white wall like blood. The next few days passed in a blur. I called in sick to work, ignoring the concerned messages from my colleagues. I changed the locks on the house and blocked both Sarah and Mike's numbers. I drank too much and slept too little, replaying every moment of the last 6 months in my head, trying to see the signs I'd missed. On the third day, there was a knock at the door. It was Sarah's sister, Lisa. She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot as she stood on my porch. "Jake," she said softly, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea, I swear. Sarah's a mess. She wants to talk to you." I laughed humorlessly. "Well, I don't want to talk to her. Ever again if I can help it." Lisa sighed. "I understand, but she asked me to give you this." She handed me an envelope. "Please, just read it. You don't have to respond or do anything. Just read it." I took the envelope reluctantly. "Fine, is that all?" She nodded, then hesitated. "Jake, for what it's worth, I think what she did was inexcusable. You deserve better." I felt a lump form in my throat at her words. "Thanks, Lisa. Take care of yourself." After she left, I stared at the envelope for a long time before finally opening it. Inside was a handwritten letter from Sarah. "Jake, I know nothing I can say will ever make up for what I've done. I've destroyed our marriage, our friendship with Mike, and any trust you ever had in me. I'm not writing this to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm writing to try to explain, even though I know no explanation will ever be enough. It started 6 months ago when you were working late nights on that big project. I was feeling lonely and neglected. Mike came over one night to check on me and things just escalated. I know that's no excuse. I should have talked to you about how I was feeling instead of turning to someone else. After that first time, we both swore it would never happen again. But it did. Again and again. Each time the guilt got worse, but so did the thrill of the secret. It was like an addiction that I couldn't break, even though I knew it was destroying everything good in my life. I want you to know that I never stopped loving you. Even in the midst of the affair, I loved you. I know that probably makes it worse, that I could do this to someone I claim to love. I don't understand it myself. I'm going to move out permanently. I'll have my lawyer contact you about divorce proceedings. You deserve to be happy, Jake, with someone who won't betray you like I have. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I read the letter 3 times, each time feeling a new wave of pain wash over me. Her words brought no comfort, no closure. If anything, they just opened the wounds wider. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work, using my promotion as an excuse to stay at the office late into the night. I avoided social gatherings, knowing that news of our split had spread through our friend group. I couldn't bear the pitying looks, the awkward attempts at comfort. Mike tried to contact me several times. He left voicemails full of tearful apologies, sent emails begging for a chance to explain. I deleted them all without listening or reading. What could he possibly say that would make any of this okay? Sarah moved out as promised. Her sister came to collect her things while I was at work. I came home to a house half empty. Sarah's presence erased as if she'd never been there at all. It was both a relief and a new kind of pain. The divorce proceedings were mercifully quick. Sarah didn't contest anything, agreeing to my terms without argument. I think she saw it as some form of penance. Within 3 months, I was officially single again. It was around this time that I decided I needed a change. The house held too many memories, the city too many ghosts of my past life. I requested a transfer to our company's office in Seattle, and to my relief, it was approved. The night before I left, I found myself driving to the park where Mike and I used to play as kids. I sat on our old favorite bench, looking out over the lake where we'd spent countless summer days swimming and fishing. As I sat there, memories washed over me. Mike teaching me to ride a bike, the two of us sneaking beers from his dad's fridge in high school, Mike standing beside me as my best man, grinning as I said I do to Sarah. For the first time since discovering the affair, I let myself really feel the loss of my best friend. Not just the man who had betrayed me, but the boy who had been by my side for most of my life. I cried then, deep, racking sobs that left me gasping for air. As the sun set over the lake, I felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, raw and throbbing, but alongside it was something new, a tiny spark of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I could build a new life for myself. A life without Sarah, without Mike, but also without the crushing weight of betrayal that had been suffocating me for months. The move to Seattle marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I threw myself into my new role at work, made an effort to meet new people, even started seeing a therapist to work through my trust issues. It wasn't easy. There were nights when the loneliness felt overwhelming, when I missed the comfort of Sarah's presence beside me in bed. There were moments when I reached for my phone to share a joke with Mike, only to remember that he was no longer a part of my life. But slowly, gradually, things started to get better. I made new friends at work. I started exploring the city, finding new favorite spots that held no painful memories. I even went on a few dates, though I was upfront about my baggage and the fact that I wasn't ready for anything serious. About a year after the move, I received an email from Sarah. My first instinct was to delete it unread, but something made me pause. With shaking hands, I opened it. Jake, I hope this email finds you well. I heard through the grapevine that you'd moved to Seattle. I'm glad you're making a fresh start. You deserve it. I'm not writing to try to rekindle anything or to ask for forgiveness. I just wanted to let you know that I'm in therapy now, really working on myself and trying to understand why I did what I did. It doesn't excuse my actions, but I'm hoping it will help me become a better person. Mike and I are not together, in case you were wondering. What we did destroyed not just my relationship with you, but also our friendship. We haven't spoken in months. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but if you ever feel ready, I would love to apologize to you in person. No pressure, no expectations, just a chance to say sorry face to face. Take care of yourself, Jake. I hope you find happiness. Sarah. I sat staring at that email for a long time, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through me. Anger, pain, a twisted sort of satisfaction that they weren't together, and underneath it all, a faint glimmer of something that might have been forgiveness. I didn't reply to the email. I wasn't ready for that. Wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready. But I saved it, a reminder of how far I'd come and how far I still had to go. As I sit here now, 2 years after that fateful day when my world imploded, I can honestly say that I'm in a better place. The pain hasn't disappeared entirely. I don't think it ever will. But it's no longer the defining feature of my life. I'm excelling in my career, have made genuine friendships, and have even started dating someone new. Lisa, my girlfriend of 6 months, knows my whole story. She's patient and understanding, never pushing me further than I'm ready to go. Do I still think about Sarah and Mike? Of course. There are moments when a song on the radio or a familiar scent brings it all rushing back. But those moments are becoming fewer and farther between. I've learned a lot about myself through this ordeal. I've learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew, that it's possible to rebuild a life from the ashes of betrayal. I've learned the importance of self-love and the power of forgiveness, not for the sake of those who hurt you, but for your own peace of mind. To anyone out there going through something similar, I want you to know that it does get better. It's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight, but you can survive this. You can come out the other side stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace life again. As for me, I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday I'll be ready to read Sarah's letter again to consider her request for a face-to-face apology. Maybe I'll even find it in my heart to forgive Mike. Or maybe I'll continue on this new path, leaving the past firmly behind me. What I do know is this: I refuse to let their betrayal define me. I am more than what was done to me. I am a survivor, and my story is far from over. Thank you for reading my story. Writing it all down has been cathartic in a way I didn't expect. If you're going through something similar, know that you're not alone. We're all just trying to navigate this messy, complicated thing called life, one day at a time. And that's the last story for today, friends. I never thought I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am, desperately seeking some kind of catharsis. What I'm about to tell you has turned my world upside down and shattered everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and loyalty. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. I am Tom, 36 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had it all. A beautiful wife, Sarah, 34, a successful career in marketing, and a comfortable life in the suburbs. Sarah and I had been married for 8 years. And while we had our ups and downs like any couple, I believed we were rock solid. We were trying for a baby, planning for our future, and I couldn't have been happier. My boss, Richard, 45, was a charismatic and successful man who had taken me under his wing when I joined the company 5 years ago. He was married with 2 kids, and I looked up to him as a mentor and role model. He often invited me and Sarah to dinner parties at his house, and we'd socialize with him and his wife, Jennifer, regularly. The beginning of the end started about 6 months ago. I was working on a huge project that required long hours and frequent travel. Sarah was supportive at first, but I could tell she was getting frustrated with my absence. Richard, being the great boss he was, suggested that he could keep Sarah company sometimes, maybe invite her to dinners with his wife when I was out of town. I thought it was a kind gesture and agreed, grateful that my wife wouldn't be alone all the time. Looking back, I can't believe how naive I was. The project was a success, and to celebrate, Richard invited the whole team to his beach house for a weekend getaway. Spouses were welcome, so naturally I brought Sarah along. I was excited to finally have some quality time with her after months of being consumed by work. The first night at the beach house, we had a big barbecue. There was plenty of food, drinks were flowing, and everyone was in high spirits. I noticed Sarah laughing a lot with Richard, but I didn't think much of it. They'd spent time together over the past few months, so I assumed they'd just become good friends. As the night wore on and more alcohol was consumed, people started to pair off or head to bed. I was deep in conversation with a colleague about our next project when I realized I hadn't seen Sarah for a while. I excused myself and went looking for her. I checked our room first, but she wasn't there. I searched the main areas of the house, the patio, even the beach, but no sign of her. As I was heading back to the house, I heard muffled voices coming from Richard's private study. The door was slightly ajar, and I approached quietly, not wanting to interrupt if it was a private conversation. What I heard next made my blood run cold. "We can't keep doing this, Richard," Sarah's voice, breathy and low. "Tom suspects something, I know it." Richard's deep chuckle followed. "Relax, baby. Tom doesn't suspect a thing. He's too focused on his career to notice what's right under his nose." I stood there, frozen, as I heard the unmistakable sounds of kissing and clothes rustling. My mind was reeling, unable to process what was happening. Part of me wanted to burst in there, to confront them, to scream in rage. But another part, the part that was already trying to protect what was left of my heart, told me to wait, to gather evidence, to be sure. So I did something I'm not proud of. I took out my phone and started recording video through the crack in the door. The angle wasn't great, but it was enough to capture Sarah perched on Richard's desk, her dress hiked up, with Richard standing between her legs, his hands roaming her body. I watched, feeling sick to my stomach as they kissed passionately. Sarah's fingers fumbled with Richard's belt, and I heard her whisper, "I want you, now." That was when I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed the door open, my hands shaking as I held up my phone, still recording. The look on their faces when they saw me. I'll never forget it as long as I live. Sarah's eyes widened in shock and horror, while Richard quickly stepped back, trying to straighten his clothes. "Tom!" Sarah gasped, jumping off the desk and pulling down her dress. "It's not." We weren't. I laughed bitterly, the sound foreign even to my own ears. "Not what, Sarah? Not fucking my boss? Because that's exactly what it looks like from where I'm standing." Richard, ever the smooth talker, tried to take control of the situation. "Now, Tom, let's all calm down and talk about this like adults." "Talk about this?" I spat, my voice rising. "Talk about how you've been screwing my wife behind my back? How long has this been going on?" Sarah burst into tears, mascara running down her face. "Tom, please, I can explain." "How long?" I roared, making them both flinch. Richard sighed, running a hand through his hair. 4 months, he admitted quietly. 4 months. The entire time I'd been working my ass off on that project, thinking I was building a better future for us. They'd been carrying on an affair. The irony was sickening. I turned to Sarah, my voice breaking as I asked, "Why? Wasn't I good enough for you?" She reached out to me, but I stepped back. "Tom, it's not like that. I was lonely. You were always working, and Richard was there." "I was working for us!" I shouted. "For our future, and this is how you repay me?" Richard tried to interject. "Tom, I know this looks bad, but..." I cut him off, my voice dangerously low. You were my mentor, my friend. I trusted you, looked up to you, and all this time you were stabbing me in the back." The gravity of the situation seemed to finally hit Richard. "I'm sorry, Tom, it just happened. We never meant to hurt you." I laughed again, a hollow, broken sound. "Never meant to hurt me? That's rich. You've been fucking my wife for 4 months, in my house, probably in my bed, and you never meant to hurt me? Save your bullshit excuses." I turned back to Sarah, who was sobbing uncontrollably now. "I want a divorce," I said flatly. "Don't bother coming home. I'll have your things packed and sent to your sisters." "Tom, please," she begged. "Can't we talk about this? I love you. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I interrupted. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk or oversleeping your alarm. Fucking my boss for 4 months isn't a mistake, Sarah. It's a choice you made every single time." I looked at Richard again, my voice cold. "As for you, I quit. I'll send in my formal resignation on Monday, and if you try to screw me over professionally, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you really are." I held up my phone. "I have evidence." With that, I turned and walked out, ignoring their calls and pleas. I went straight to our room, packed my bags, and left a note for my team explaining that there was a family emergency and I had to leave immediately. Then I got in my car and started driving with no real destination in mind. I drove for hours, my mind replaying every moment of the past 4 months, searching for signs I might have missed. How could I have been so blind? The late-night texts she'd pass off as just work. The sudden interest in her appearance, buying new clothes and lingerie. The distance between us that it attributed to stress and fatigue. It all made sickening sense now. I ended up at a cheap motel somewhere along the coast. As soon as I checked in, the adrenaline that had been keeping me going wore off, and the full weight of what had happened hit me like a truck. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was violently sick, my body purging as if it could somehow expel the pain and betrayal along with the contents of my stomach. The next few days passed in a blur. I ignored the constant calls and messages from Sarah, Richard, and concerned colleagues. I drank too much, slept too little, and stared at the walls of that dingy motel room, trying to make sense of how my life had imploded so spectacularly. On the 3rd day, I finally worked up the courage to call my best friend Mike. His reaction was a mix of shock, anger on my behalf, and genuine concern. "Jesus, Tom," he said, after I'd recounted the whole sordid tale. "I'm so sorry, man. What can I do?" I sighed, feeling utterly drained. "I don't know, Mike. I don't know what to do next. I can't go home. I can't face work. I feel lost." Mike was quiet for a moment before speaking. "Come stay with me and Lisa for a while. Get out of that motel. Get some real food in you. We'll figure this out together, okay?" His offer of support brought tears to my eyes, and I accepted gratefully. The next day, I checked out of the motel and made the 3-hour drive to Mike and Lisa's place. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Mike and Lisa were amazing, providing a safe haven where I could begin to process what had happened. I started seeing a therapist, trying to work through the anger, betrayal, and crushing sense of inadequacy that threatened to overwhelm me. Sarah continued to try to contact me, leaving tearful voicemails and sending long, rambling emails full of apologies and explanations. I couldn't bring myself to read or listen to any of them. The wound was still too raw, the betrayal too fresh. Richard, to his credit, didn't try to contact me directly. He did, however, send a formal letter through the company's legal department, offering a generous severance package in exchange for my silence about the unfortunate personal matter that led to my resignation. The implication was clear: take the money and keep quiet, or face potential legal consequences. After discussing it with Mike and my therapist, I decided to take the deal. As much as I wanted to expose Richard for the lying, cheating scumbag he was, I knew that a prolonged legal battle would only keep the wound open. I needed to move on, to start rebuilding my life. The divorce proceedings were mercifully quick. Sarah didn't contest anything, agreeing to my terms without argument. I think she saw it as some form of penance. Within 2 months, I was officially single again. It was around this time that I decided I needed a complete change of scenery. The city held too many memories, too many potential run-ins with people who knew about my humiliation. I started looking for jobs in other states, eventually landing a position with a small but growing marketing firm in Colorado. The night before I left for Colorado, Mike and Lisa threw me a small going-away party. As I looked around at the handful of true friends who had stuck by me through this ordeal, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. Maybe, just maybe, I could build a new life for myself. As I was saying my goodbyes, Mike pulled me aside. "I've got something for you," he said, handing me an envelope. "Don't open it until you're settled in Colorado, okay?" I nodded, curious but respecting his request. The next morning, I loaded up my car and set off for my new life in Colorado. The first few weeks in Colorado were a whirlwind of new experiences. I threw myself into my new job, made an effort to meet new people, and started exploring the beautiful mountain landscape that was now my backyard. Slowly but surely, I started to feel like myself again. It was about a month after the move when I remembered the envelope Mike had given me. I opened it with trembling hands, not sure what to expect. Inside was a letter from Mike, along with a USB drive. The letter read, "Tom, I debated long and hard about whether to give you this. In the end, I decided you deserve to know the whole truth, no matter how painful. A week after you left, Sarah came to see me. She was a mess, Tom. She poured her heart out, told me everything about the affair with Richard. She also gave me this USB drive, which contains emails and text messages between them going back to the start of the affair. I know you're trying to move on, and maybe reading this stuff will only set you back. But I also know you, Tom. You need closure, and maybe this will help provide it. Whatever you decide to do with this information, know that Lisa and I are always here for you. You're the strongest person I know, and I have no doubt you'll come out of this even stronger. Love you, brother. Mike." I stared at the USB drive for a long time, torn between the desire to know everything and the fear of reopening old wounds. In the end, curiosity won out. What I found on that drive shook me to my core. The emails and texts painted a picture of an affair that was more than just physical. There was an emotional intimacy there that hurt almost more than the physical betrayal. I read about their secret meetings, their plans for the future, their discussions about me and how to keep me in the dark. But as I read through the messages, I also noticed a change in tone over time. What started as passionate and exciting seemed to evolve into something more complicated. Sarah's messages became tinged with guilt and doubt. She wrote about feeling torn, about her love for me, about her fear of losing everything. The final email, dated just days after the confrontation at the beach house, was from Sarah to Richard. "Richard, I can't do this anymore. What we had, it was a fantasy, an escape from real life, but the cost is too high. I've destroyed my marriage, hurt the man I truly love more than I ever thought possible. And for what? A few moments of excitement? I'm going to try to fix things with Tom if hell let me. Please don't contact me again. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused everyone involved. Goodbye, Sarah." Reading that email brought a fresh wave of pain, but also a strange sense of clarity. The affair hadn't been some great love story, destined to tear us apart. It had been a mistake, a series of bad choices made by flawed people. That realization didn't erase the hurt or magically fix everything, but it did help me start to let go of some of the anger I'd been carrying. I began to see Sarah not as a villain in my story, but as a complex human being who had made a terrible mistake. In the months that followed, I focused on building my new life in Colorado. I excelled at my new job, made genuine friendships, and even started dating again, though I was upfront about my baggage and the fact that I wasn't ready for anything serious. About a year after the move, I received an email from Sarah. My first instinct was to delete it unread, but something made me pause. With shaking hands, I opened it. "Tom, I hope this email finds you well. I heard through Mike that you'd moved to Colorado. I'm glad you're making a fresh start. You deserve it. I'm not writing to try to win you back or to ask for forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable. I just wanted to let you know that I'm in therapy now, really working on myself and trying to understand why I did what I did. It doesn't excuse my actions, but I'm hoping it will help me become a better person. Richard and I are not together, in case you were wondering. What we did destroyed not just my relationship with you, but also his marriage and his career. He was fired when the company found out about the affair. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but if you ever feel ready, I would love to apologize to you in person. No pressure, no expectations. Just a chance to say sorry face to face and maybe give us both some closure. I hope you find happiness, Tom. You deserve it more than anyone I know. Sarah." I sat staring at that email for a long time, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through me. Anger, pain, a twisted sort of satisfaction that Richard had faced consequences, and underneath it all, a faint glimmer of something that might have been forgiveness. I didn't reply to the email. I wasn't ready for that, wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready, but I saved it, a reminder of how far I'd come and how far I still had to go. As I sit here now, 2 years after that fateful night at the beach house, I can honestly say that I'm in a better place. The pain hasn't disappeared entirely, I don't think it ever will, but it's no longer the defining feature of my life. I'm excelling in my career, have made genuine friendships, and have even started a new relationship. Melissa, my girlfriend of 6 months, knows my whole story. She's patient and understanding, never pushing me further than I'm ready to go. Do I still think about Sarah and what happened? Of course. There are moments when a song on the radio or a familiar scent brings it all rushing back, but those moments are becoming fewer and farther between.